So today, like we've mentioned, we're going to do an introduction to metrics, kind of give you some examples of ones that are easy to add, easy add visuals, and then some tips on how to adjust those and then publish them and provide them to your clients. So with that, we are going to dive in. What are metrics? They are key data points or KPIs. KPIs, key performance indicators. So it's important information, values, and data that your clients may need to know or would be helpful for them to know as they are learning more about their finances and making financial decisions. These data points pull from the financial statements. You can also create and track custom variables within Keeper. Today, we're going to go over what is in there by default. And using all of those data points, you can create graphs and visuals for your client. Now, these can be used in tandem with the management reports within Keeper, or you can use them as standalone. Where are they? So on the close page or the client page, you have multiple tabs at the top underneath where the client name is, and you're going to be looking for the one that says metrics. Under metrics, you have two tabs here, variables and visuals. Our variables, essentially, they're spreadsheets. So it's a spreadsheet of data. You've got it split into different tabs. And again, these pull from the built-in financial reports, your profit and loss, balance sheet, statement of cash flows. All of those are automatically in this metrics tab. But you do have the ability to add custom variables. You can add additional tabs to this variable page to create your visuals. So the visuals are created using whatever variables you have present, whether they're the default ones or ones that you've added yourself. If they're on that variables tab, you can then use them in a visual. And we're going to get into more details about that here shortly. First, we're going to look closer at the variables. So on your variables tab page here, you've got your profit and loss, balance sheet, and the cash flow. Those three are going to be default. If you click this little plus button down here in the corner, you can then add additional tabs. So we have one that's some quick KPIs and then also a profit and loss by class. So you can select additional ones from there as well. Like I said, it looks like a spreadsheet, just has a whole bunch of numbers in here. This is going to show you 12 months worth of data. So that's going to be across the board within Keeper. On our close page, when we're looking at data on that page, reviewing transactions, the farthest back we can go is 12 months. Same thing here with our variables. We have a 12-month window of data that we're pulling in.
And just to clarify, Jody, is that 12 months from the close period that you're working on?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So if
Yep.
we
So you'll see
did need
here
to
we're
go
in
back,
September. Yep. So we're in September 25. That's our latest column available here. Our earliest available column is October of 24.
beautiful. So that's going to be really helpful if we are doing like a cleanup and need to do some metrics based on that or anything like that. That may be where you utilize going and opening up a previous month end close period. Beautiful.
Correct. Yep. Excellent point. Again, this just shows you what's default on the page and then the fact that you can add custom. So you can do additional statements by class, location, customer if you have that enabled for that specific client. That's another thing. All of these are very specific to that individual client. This is not something that you set up once as a template and apply to all clients. This will be one client at a time. And then, of course, you can create your own.
And we'll go deeper into some of the things that we can pull from a default, but I think it's really cool to just understand that even if we are not in the really in depth, big formulas, like that's what we're into right now, we don't have the space for that. There's still plenty that we can pull just from what's in the default of the profit and loss or the balance sheet or the cash flow. So don't let yourself get turned off by the idea of, oh my gosh, I got to do formulas. I definitely don't have the space. There's definitely plenty that we can play with that are relatively simple that can add more value to our actual reports. So just want to make sure, because this is where I start to get overwhelmed, is like, oh my gosh, we have variables and formulas. Like, don't have to.
Yes, it is easy to do an introduction into metrics and skip this page completely. Like, I just want the data from the reports that I have. I'm going to skip straight to visuals. So that is something that you can do. And actually, what I recommend you do, if you're trying to start dabbling in this, is just go ahead and skip straight to that visuals page. Within the visuals, when we add it, we give it a title. You have the option to add a description if you would like, or a subtitle to it. You can choose the format, whether it's currency, percentages, that type of thing, and how you want that rounded. And then you choose your visual type. And you can see the full list here. And I've got a slide that shows you examples of what all of those look like. And then this is where you're going to select that variable or multiple variables to be created or to be pulled in for that report. Now, a somewhat more recent feature update is our date range. It used to always default to 12 months because that's what was in the variables and that's all you had. We now have the ability to select our date range that we want to show. So if we're looking to only show 1 month of information, we can choose that. We can choose to show just fiscal year to date or even calendar year to date. So if depending on the visual type that you choose. So there are some that'll limit you. Like I think the line graph 1 month's not going to work for that because it's a line graph. You need more data for that graph to work. But when you select your visual type here, you then have a drop down that you can select for your date range. Helps it to be more relevant for where you are in that period.
Yeah, really exciting update there. I know some of us landed on the side of I just want to see someone 1 month, and some of us landed on the other side of things. So now it's cool that you can choose, and this is also really helpful for choosing like by client what's going to be most helpful for them in their process and the decisions that they're making.
Yes. Yes. All right. So like we said, you can create visuals for any variable in your tab. This is a quick preview of some that we have in our demo account, bar chart and area graph, and these would be considered KPI indicator cards. This is just one single variable. All the rest of them have multiple variables, but this is one single variable that gives you the balance and then percentage of change. But you can go crazy and create as many visuals as you want. These are the seven different options that you have. So this just gives you a really good vision of these are all very similar things. Most of them are the core costs. So same data, same information presented in different ways. And this is again where you could talk to your client and find out, hey, what would be helpful for you to see? And then you can play around with the types of visuals to look to see, okay, which one makes me feel like I'm getting it across to them more clearly. Um, I think the benefit of doing even just the simplest of income and expenses is to give them that visual. It takes it off of a black and white page of just words, like letters and numbers, and it gives them a clear picture. They can easily see at a glance, hey, something changed here in the middle. Maybe we need to look into that. So that would be the benefit of playing around with metrics. If you're comfortable with that, is just it's a different way of showing the exact same information and could be helpful to your client.
Yep, exactly. And I think one of the cool things with any new feature, but especially something like this, is setting up the variables that you know you want and just clicking through to see the different charts, like Jody said, to see what's going to get that picture across the most clear. So I think that's one that I've played around with as well. Is just like, okay, I know I want these, but like, how do I want to show them? What's the difference between some of these? So it's a really cool like exploration. But I will put in the plug of careful with your time and your time management on this. This is one that, especially us number nerds, I can get really excited about, but this is individual per client, right? And we want to make sure that this is within the scope that we've outlined, right? So don't undersell yourself for creating all of these visuals and maintaining them. If it's a fun learning project, awesome, but set a timer so you don't lose yourself in that and then don't get any like marked or paid progress. I think that's just one. I'll take my consulting hat off and I'll get off my soapbox, but that's just one thing to like make sure you're being careful of because it's really easy to just deep dive into this and then realize that you have way more work on your plate than you originally intended.
Absolutely. I think that was a valid point. Thank you, Erica. So once you've dabbled in it, you've created the ones that you want to share with your client, you can then publish them. So if you are utilizing the management report, there are three places that you can do that. On the executive summary under configure page, you will have the option to select your key metrics that you want shown. Now for key metrics, these are typically your single variable things. So your KPI cards are usually the most common shown here because it's going to show you a single value for that month. Um, but you can add those there. So if you do down the line, if you were to get into more advanced margins, percentages, and that kind of thing, if you create the custom tables and all of that, you do have the option to select those to put them on this executive summary. But the most common one that we see, oh, Erica, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add that this is a really good like 1.0 if you're trying to add more dimension to your management reports or getting it to click with a client that has a hard time just reading the basic P&L and profit and loss. I think this is a really good one to start playing with that doesn't involve let's go in to create these individual per client like visuals and stuff like that that can be just more time to manage. So if in doubt, play with this one first. You can cut down a whole lot on this page if you just want to show those key metrics or vice versa. So I would say start here if you want to add more value without a ton more time or learning investment. And then we can kind of go sequentially for the next couple that we're going to show as well.
Yeah. And then the next option is the metrics page. You have a whole page that you can devote to those visuals that you've created. So if you don't see this, you can always click Add Page, then select Metrics. And I believe we have the ability now to be able to drag this up. So if you want the metrics page to come before all of the reports, you can drag that up to the top there. But this is just a page that shows all of those visuals for your client. And then the final one, which I think is the most fun, is the new interactive financials. So this is a preview of the client portal showing their side. So back over to our side, here is where we would be able to preview the interactive financials. And I could select metrics right here, see the same information and how my client would see it. But once I've published it to the client portal, I then can see this as my client would see it. So if you've published interactive metrics and reports, financials tab, you would have those showing up here on any of the months that you've published those. Then when the client hovers over these, they can see the data points. And we'll do a preview and once we get into the demo of this. But that's what makes it interactive, is that they can hover over the various spaces on these metric visuals and see what those data points are and what those variables are that went into creating it.
Yeah, and for any of us that have been using Keeper for a while, this was a big discrepancy. Is on our side, when we were looking at it, we could hover over and see the percentage or see the total of that. But then when we publish
Mhm.
it to our clients, there was no numbers or data on that at all. So there was kind of a rift for a lot of us that we didn't want to use metrics until that was possible. So now this enables us to still have that interactive view and for clients to keep an eye on things in their own time and space while still being able to see everything they need to.
Yeah.
This being said, this is a really good point to make that these interactives are not available on the mobile app yet. So if clients are using the client portal on the mobile, there is not going to be this tab here or the interactive piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in the chat the canny request for this if anybody else would like to upvote. Upvoting it gets it to where the team sees it and is able to prioritize based on kind of the volume of people that would like to see that feature implemented. And it also keeps you in the loop when that status changes or when they do upload or kind of create that feature in Keeper. So that's in the chat if anybody would like it.
Before we dive into our demo, I wanted to share just a few examples. But the possibilities are endless, especially as you get more involved in them or as you explore them more, if you choose to do that. Especially if you get into the more advanced ones. There's a lot that you can do here, but it does take time to learn them and explore them. Um, Common ones, simple yet very powerful, is just a simple income versus expenses. You can also pull out key account balances. I've seen, I do for my clients a lot that have multiple revenue streams. I'll do a sales per service line, or revenue based on the type of sale that they're doing, or that income, the income streams there. Cost of goods sold, again, that's another simple one that you can just pull directly from your P&L and into a visual. The ones that I consider more advanced are ones that are probably going to involve formulas and some custom tabs or custom variable pages to be able to then pull and create those visuals. Some of those would be margins, percentages of things, budget versus actuals, those type of things would be what I would consider more advanced settings there. And our biggest recommendation when it comes to metrics is just start simple. Even very basic visuals provide an incredible value to your clients because, again, like we mentioned earlier, it provides the same data in a different way. And sometimes seeing it in a different way or in that visual chart, graph uh, way, it can unlock a different understanding of the information. I'm putting our consulting hats on. If you do decide to expand into more advanced metrics, we would highly encourage you to consider increasing your pricing because it does take more time to invest in those more advanced metrics. And you want to account for that added setup and the incredible added value that your clients will gain from that. That definitely goes more and more towards that advisory service.
Exactly, and I think that's the only point that we want to make here is that that is closer toward advisory, kind of starts to blur that line. So just make sure that you are protecting your own time and the value that you're creating. That may mean, hey, I have like a tier on top of this. I do kind of basic financials for most people, but I have a tier on top that I do some metrics or some manual reporting or more like hands-on calls with them. But just keep in mind that can be something that's blurry over time, right? That we kind of like live in this in between for a season until we figure out where we want one to live and one to start and one to end. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind that this is this probably should not be a free service that you add on unless you are doing like you have that accounted for in your packaging.
All right, quick blurb to save the date for next month's Q&A. Wednesday, November 19th, we're going to continue our talk on metrics and go into the more advanced settings there, customizing formulas, that type of thing. So save the date for next month's Metrics 202. And with that, we're going to dive into the demo and start answering questions, give you guys a quick look, live view of the metrics, and then we'll jump into the chat with any questions. So if you haven't asked your question yet, please do drop it into the chat. If it's about metrics, okay, we'll get to those first probably, but if not, ask anything about any feature in Keeper, and we are happy to explore that with you on this call.
Beautiful. Well, while you're switching over, Jody, I figure we could do just a basic on metrics like we were talking about. I do have one question queued up, but for the recording sake and everybody involved, let's go ahead and do that metrics
Sure.
basic, and then I'll jump into the question next.
All right. So as we mentioned, it is going to be here on this metrics tab between your close and reporting.
And this is a good mention, actually. Sorry to interrupt, that these are for connected clients, right? Because this is pulling
Yes.
from the accounting software. On an unconnected client, you will not see metrics or reporting at all. So if you can't find that button, that's probably why. Just making sure that that's like connected for everybody as well.
And this is available for both QBO and Zero clients, so it will still pull in those details for you. So this is your variables tab. As we mentioned, you get 12 months worth of data, so 12 columns of data. This is going to pull directly from that profit and loss, balance sheet, and cash flow. And in here, you cannot edit these details. So on these three default reports, this information is not editable. You can do your editing in the close when you are working through your transactions, making any updates directly there. That will feed back to QBO immediately. And then that information is also updated here in real time for your variables. Once you do get into the advanced customizing, all of the customized ones, that's where you're entering in the information. So that is something that you can update and change. But on these three default ones that are the statements, all the information is locked down. All right.
And
Oh, you
just
can
want to
also
call
change the
out,
basis here too if
yep,
needed.
on the same page here. That's one that I hear a lot that we're like, where do I find that? It's a tiny little hidden button, but that's where you can find it on either the variables or the visuals page. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like we said, we've got some built out here already, but I'll show you from scratch. So we want to add a visual and we will do, let's see, what do I want to do? Cost of goods sold. Do we have any cost of goods sold? We'll find out. I'm going to leave it as currency. My favorite is the area chart. And then I can select my variables here. So this is going to show you every account, every variable line that you have. So it can be quite lengthy. If you try to scroll through it, it would be easier to start typing and see. So I've got my cost of goods sold here. And then it's going to ask you to select a color, and if up is good or bad. So that's up to you how you want to do that. And here we go. So I've got one item in here. If I wanted to see this compared to my income, maybe I can add in my income. I'm going to change that to a happier color. Okay. There we go. So we've got our income and we've got our cost of goods sold, just 2 points of data that it's pulling from. Maybe I don't want to see the whole year though, so I'm going to change my date range to calendar year to date. You can also, I didn't highlight this in the slides, but there are some visual types where you can compare to the previous time period. If I do that, it's going to, on the this one, it's a bit harder to see. So what it does is it's going to show you in a lighter color. So the income for this year is a darker purple. Income from last year is a lighter purple. This is probably easier to see on a bar chart where you can see the darker one is 25, lighter one is 24. So you do have that option to compare to a prior time period if you wish on some of these. But this is where you can just really play around and see what style works best. For those, I don't know if I have multiple income in here, income streams. That's another fun one to do, but I don't have it. I could see what my expenses are. I'm going to do some payroll
and I think while
just to
you're
show
kind of
you.
showing some of these variables, this variables part is the exact reason why this is not something that at this point in time we can create a template for and just apply across the board.
Correct.
Because this is pulling from this client's actual accounts. So I think that's where the disconnect is. The Keeper team is on it. That is one that they hear all the time is I want to be able to create templates for this and stuff like that. So it is something that they're working on in the background. But I think having that understanding of why we can't do it or why this is individual per client can sometimes help cement. Because I find myself all the time, oh, let's create a template for this. Wait, I can't. So that is exactly why is it's pulling from these exact whatever you have set up in your COA.
Mhm. So I just pulled some payroll information. I set it for 1 month. This is going to give me my total for my payroll expenses. And then if I hover over, I can see how much of that was wages, how much of that was taxes. That's just another example of a different type of visual. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And the last one that you save is going to be the one that comes up here at the top. If that's not where you want it, you can drag and drop it to whatever order you'd like it to be in. So you can drag the visual by clicking that and pulling it down where you want it to go. If I do that correctly, nope, I'm still not doing it right. Come down. There we go. So I can have it at the bottom. You can have 2 of the graphs side by side. I believe you can have 3 of the KPI cards side by side. So you can play around with your presentation there as you'd like. But all of these, once you have them set, you can edit them. So click on the little settings wheel. It's going to bring up the same thing and you can edit as needed. And then if you're like, I don't want that or need that anymore, you also have the ability to delete them.
I think one thing that's also important to point out is that once you have these created, um, Jody, we don't have to recreate them every month. Can you
Correct.
kind of expand on that? Is it
Yep.
closes moving forward or backward? Just want to make sure we're
Yes. So
covering them.
much like adding a task to your closing section, if you add it there, it's going to repeat the following close period. Same thing with metrics. Once you set them once, they will proceed to go forward. So set them up in the latest or the most recent close, and then moving forward, they will follow through. Yeah.
Perfect. And then um, I, I was trying to see if there's anything else we wanted to add while we are here on this page. That's all I can think of. Is there anything? Oh,
What?
can we show how to change the colors if we get into it and we
Oh.
realize that we want to change that one? That one's a little bit goofy, but I've heard that question
Yeah, it's
quite a
not
bit.
as easy. It's not easy to do. So if we wanted to change the colors, essentially you have to delete the variable and then come back to the variable. So I can't click on it to edit that part. Um, so what I would do is X out of the wages and I would go to add wages back in, and then I would select a different color this time for that, save it, and now I've got a new color. A little
Perfect.
clunky, but that's
Yeah,
how we
if you're
can do that
looking for
now.
an edit button, you're not missing it, but that's kind of the workaround that we have to change that color.
One thing to keep in mind, especially with KPI cards, but if you have multiple variables and there's a variable that doesn't have data that period, it's only going to show the data for, if it's 0, there's nothing to show. If it's a KPI card, and it's 0, you may end up with an error, or it'll just look blank. So that's one thing to keep in mind is that if you do have something that's a single month and a single variable and there's nothing in that account, it's a 0, you may either receive an error or it'll just be blank for that period. So that would be up to you. If you wanted to remove it for that month, then remember to go back in and add it back.
Yep. And then if we are going to include these in our management reports, let's show that reporting side and what page those actually show up on.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving over to reporting, we've got our metrics the way we want them. We're going to move over to reporting. All right, so if I wanted to move it, I can hover, hover over it and drag it up to where I want it to go. So if I want to do the executive summary and then my metrics page, I now have that ability, which is so great because for the longest time it was locked at the bottom. So metrics page here, you can do that. If you need to edit the visuals, there's a button here to edit. It's just going to kick you back to where we just were on that metrics tab, on the visuals tab. Here, when we're looking at it, we can see all of these numbers. When this publishes, it becomes a PDF. So these numbers are no longer available to them. It will just look like this, a flat PDF page. If you want them to have interactive, so that when they hover over, they can do that. You'd want to publish the interactive financials here. Looks very similar, but this is exactly what the client will see, and I'll show you that with the client portal preview here in just a minute. But as we also mentioned earlier, the executive summary is where you can add in some key metrics. So if you go to configure page, you can toggle that on and then manage what you are adding in here. I had some other ones preset. So I'm just going to select that as a percentage, save. And this is where you can pull from any of the variables that you have available. And you'll see that I've got that now added down here as another line item. For the executive summary, this key metrics, it's going to look like this. You're not going to be adding in a graph or a separate bar chart or anything like that here in this section. This is just giving you that title of whatever you've labeled it, and then that value that you've given to it. You want me to go ahead and show the portal preview
Yeah,
interactive?
I think that's a perfect segue to go over and show
Okay.
kind of that client side of things. Yeah, perfect.
And I think we highlight this on every Q&A because we love it so much, but clicking on portal, navigate to the portal settings. You got your preview here. This is just a easy way to see live what your client can see. So this is real time, exactly what your client would see when they log in. So if they have access to financials, you can click on that financials tab. This is where they'll see that PDF of it, and it'll have the PDF of the metrics at the bottom because I didn't publish it after I moved it. So this is what they'll see on the metrics page in the PDF. Somewhat helpful, but not as helpful as what the interactive would be. So I can click on metrics here, and then as a client, I can hover over and see, okay, January, these were my values, February, these were mine. You can hover over each data point and see how that breaks down. Same thing over here. You can toggle through to see what the data points are as the months progress. Did we have any other questions surrounding metrics before we open up to anything else in Keeper?
Not that I've seen. So if there are any questions that you have now that we've kind of done a live demo, feel free to pop those in. Or likewise, if you have other questions, now is a safe time. Jody, while we're waiting on anybody to kind of guide us where to go next, one thing I wanted to come back to is in that case, if you are running into like you have to remove it because this is an empty value for this month, I wanted to cover some troubleshooting ways that we could capture that on our task so we don't forget for next month. So I can think of two different ways. If we go back to the close page, and if you have a task as part of your close that is like publish client financials, you can add a description there on that task to say removed for September, add back in October. Like that would be a very easy way to go ahead and capture that. Yep, just right in here. That description is going to pull over for next month. So you don't have to worry about adding a comment, but that comment disappears the next time you open up a close period. So I would say play around with utilizing the description if you already have a closing task, or you can create a custom task as a reminder that's set for when you're going to be publishing those financials for next month. I've had some people go in and try to add a comment that they can't see the next time they open up a close
Right.
because it sticks to that task. So, wanted to provide a quick example. So, again, using the description there or a custom task up at the top in like the general section if you don't have a task like
Yeah.
this that you want to utilize. So, we have lots of freebies. These monthly Q&As are our most well known. So, you can join us next month for Metrics 202 if you want to for there. Or on our YouTube channel, we have all previous ones if you want to go back and see what topics we've covered before. We also have an additional resources page where if you want fun PDFs of what kind of tags to use or things like that, you're more than welcome to go check out any of those to kind of get you on your way and get you a little bit more settled in Keeper. And then Jody, if you'll go to the next slide, we also are able to help in more capacity. So if you are somebody that realizes, oh my gosh, I'm in too deep, or I'm making a big transition in my software, or things just aren't clicking the way I really want them to, that's when I would encourage you to reach out. Easiest way to do that is go to our website and go to hughesandstrong.com/contact. And I will meet your smiling face and kind of point you in the right direction. But this can go anywhere from I just need to train my team because I'm still learning it and I need somebody to kind of explain and cheerlead Keeper to we can look over your Keeper account and do specialized recommendations all the way to I don't want to set any of this up. Can you help me? So, full spectrum here of support, and more than happy to help you wherever you fit along the journey, especially if you're like, I know I need help, but I don't know in what capacity. Let us know. I'll get you in for a call and we'll kind of figure out what feels best for you. So, quick little blurb there in case anybody realizes that they need more help.